We are back for our next session of the wehorse Online Festival. Pleasure to have all of you back in the session. We are going to continue with Linda Tellington-Jones. We have people from all over the world tuning in. The Netherlands, France, Canada, the United States, Ohio, UK, Australia, Iceland, Finland, Portugal, and we are delighted to have her back again. She's kind of like the veteran of the wehorse Online Festival. Hi, Linda Tellington-Jones.
Hi, everybody. What a pleasure to be here with you like this.
Yes, it is a pleasure for us as well. We are super excited to have you back for another presentation, Learn the Magic of TTouch for You and Your Horse. This is the topic of today, but before we start, we would like to show everyone again our workbook. Each and everyone received it by email. If not, we will drop the download link in the chat once again by our support team. So the workbook features, of course, also a section on Linda and her work, The Magic of TTouch. You can make your own notes, write down your biggest learnings, what you will try in your daily training, and also the questions that may come up that might be addressed during the Q&A session. The questions can be asked via the Ask a Questions tab. There you can type in your questions, submit it, and also we will have an upvoting system where all of you can participate and upvote those questions you like best. Learn the magic of TTouch for you and your horse. This is the topic of you, Linda, today. I'm especially delighted to have you because you are kind of like my family, because you are my godmother. You are the founder of the Tellington-TTouch method, a revolutionary way of training horses that has spread around the world. Your books have even been translated into Chinese, and you nowadays have a guild of people all around the world teaching your technique, your Tellington-TTouch method. And there's nothing more to say from my side, I think, and we are very, very excited that you proceed. The stage is yours, Linda.
So in our next slide, I'm going to just introduce you to the idea that you do this TTouch for yourself before you even start on your horse. And I'm going to give you some of the details of how you do this. So in the next slide, I'm showing you the basic circle. So in our next slide, there we are. Now, this part of the Tellington method is the basic 1 1/4 circle. And what this circle does is connect you to that cellular intelligence that is in your whole body. I mean, did you ever stop to think how it is that we can breathe, that our blood flows, that our lymph works, that our lungs work? It's that divine, creative intelligence of the entire universe. And this 1 1/4 circle connects us to this. So I'm going to show now in the next slide some of the actual details. What we need to do to know with this basic circle before you start working on your horse is a 1 1/4 touch. And if you would just follow me and do this on your own hand, I'm making a connection with my thumb. That's like a connector. And then I move my fingers just in 1 circle and 1/4. Like I say, it's like a connection to this amazing intelligence in every cell in our body. And that activates the communication between the cells. Now, this is not massage. And so you need to understand how light we actually do this when we move the skin on ourselves or on our horses. So we have the basic circle the pressure. And I'm going to show you how to tell how lightly we do this. So just follow me. Catch your elbow. Take a nice deep breath. And put your thumb on your cheek. And then I reach out with one forefinger and I just move the tissue, the skin on my eyelid in a circle and a quarter. Now, feel how light that is. Oh, it's just moving the skin. So now to check that, go to your arm, put your thumb underneath, like this, and curve your fingers, and just move your skin as lightly as you did on your eyelid. Now, it's not going over the skin. That will not release pain or fear like you can do for yourself or your horse. Now, we also need to know about the tempo. And with the tempo, it's like 1 second to move in a circle and a quarter, or 2 seconds. And with the 2 seconds, you have a little pause. We call it the mindful pause. And then we have the breath. And in the next slide, you'll see this circle of the what we call the 9 elements. Go stay back on the 9 elements if we can. Well, it's okay. I'll just remind you. So we pay attention to our breath, our connection between the circles, the posture that we have, and you'll see this, show you this in one of our slides here. And what's really important is the intention that we have. The intention is to acknowledge, to recognize, to see the amazing potential for ideal function in every cell in our body. And this concept actually comes from a Nobel Prize winner, Dr. Sir Tellington, who wrote that every cell in our body knows its function in the body. And it's been a basic concept that I've been following since I first discovered Sir Charles Sherrington's work in 1976. This idea that we can move the skin like this and recognizing the wow factor. Isn't this amazing? So when I look at a horse, I don't look for the dysfunction, the problems. I first recognize, like, this is a miracle. And then what I want to teach you is to go back to what I mentioned before we get to the horse here. Go back to this basic 3 magic touches. The first one that I mentioned is the heart hug. And why you would want to do this before you start working with your horse. Take a deep breath. Just put one hand over the other on your chest. And it's sometimes easier to fold one hand and then move it just one hand over the other. Imagine the face of a clock here. That's why I had to show you the clock first. Why do we imagine the clock? It's really makes a difference when you look, because on that imaginary clock, you know, the old school clock that we all had on the wall, you take it off and you put it right there. And on that clock, we imagine the numbers 6 toward the ground, 9 toward the right shoulder, and up here, 12 toward the chin, and 3. Why? Because that activates the logical part of our brain.
Linda,
And
before you
yeah,
proceed, there have been a couple of people hearing some echo,
I
so
know.
it might be wise that you turn down your own volume a little, so
Oh,
everyone has a nice and smooth audio.
yeah. It's been there the whole time. I didn't know where that was coming from. Okay, how's that? Yeah, that echo's gone. Oh, thank you.
I think this is a little better. If this problem is still there, please just drop us a message in the chat, and then we will take care of it. So back to you, Linda.
Yeah, I could hear it before, and it's gone now. I want to bring you all to these magic 3. I really want you to get this. Why? Because so you imagine that face of the clock. We put the numbers on there. Now, the imagining this clock and gently, very gently moving the skin around the face of that clock. That puts you in a state of heart coherence. So that's the ideal state for learning. It also takes you out of that sympathetic nervous system state of, oh, what's going on, and brings you to the parasympathetic. Now, studies have shown that when you are in that calm state, horses want to be with you. They will listen to you in a different way. It also is something really great for you if you're going into a competition or you're doing something that you're not so sure about and you're in a state of anxiety. 1 1/4 circles. Now, what's important to add to this is breathe in through your nose and out through your gently pursed lips, like you're blowing gently out through a straw. Now, do any of you ever have these looping thoughts? This for me, it's like a gift from the horses, this basic 1 1/4 circles, because I developed it for the horses. But if you have looping thoughts, like a song you can't stop or some words you can't stop, 2 or 3 of these circles, try it with a mindful pause, will activate the forebrain instead of the activation of that primitive part of our brain for fight and flight. Now, also, I mentioned the mouth detouch. We do this for horses and people, and it's just working around your mouth like this. You can take your lips and move them. Try that. When you're in a deep emotional state, man, you can't get it together. Just do this. Now you'll see it on one of the videos that wehorse made with me doing this with the horse. And just like this. Now, the third one was the ear TTouch. This is, again, a gift from the horses because I got this idea of the ear TTouch in the cases of shock. I got this from my mare, Bint Galita, in 1958 when she was scheduled to be euthanized for a 4-day impaction. And my vet was on the way. This is before you did surgery, 1958, think of that. And of course, I was feeling really bad. And I brought my mare in and I intuitively just started to do TTouch. It wasn't TTouch, just do a slide from the base of the ear out to the tips, just quietly, just to say goodbye. And her temperature was subnormal. She was in shock. Her ears were like ice cold and totally wet. And I just, without thinking, so intuitively, just start this work like this. And I don't know how long I did it, maybe 10 minutes. But just think of this, you think your horse is going to die and you don't keep track of time. But suddenly her ears became warm and dry. she lifted her tail and defecated, and that was the end of the impaction. And it took me years before I discovered from a vet, actually, that working on the ears, that we can bring a horse out of shock or colic. Doesn't mean you don't call your vet. That's just something you can do in addition, or when you can't get your vet. Now, beautiful thing is, you can do this for yourself. And just going in here, working these ears. If you have any kind of injury, or you're waiting for medical help, if you're cold, if you have headaches, just really gently going right in this little valley of the ear, and a little slide like this. Now try it, because we have thousands of case studies of this, knowing that it works. Those are the magic 3. You do them with your horse and yourself. So in the next slide, now we'll start with the horses. In the next slide, there we are. So instead of making the circle with the pads of the fingers, I'm going to see if I can bring your head a little lower. Actually make the circle with the whole hand, which is what we call the abalone. Easy. And I hold her here. Good girl. That's a good girl. That's nice. Now, for some people, this movement with the flat hand in 1 circle and a quarter is a little uncomfortable on the wrist. So you can just turn the back of your hand and make the same 1 1/4 circle with the back of the fingers. If you can come down a little bit more. That's a girl. That's nice. Here. Because when she lowers her head like that, it's trusting. She has to trust in order to do it. And if the head is up and she's holding her breath, she's just not sure what we're doing. Easy. That's a girl. I can put the whole hand on and just melt my hand on her. Come down. That's a girl. That's it. And I have to make a circle and a quarter and a slide and a pause. Breathe. And this is a nice, slower circle, right? That's calming and for trust. Now, you notice here that I brought her head down. And that's essential. And also that she's not tied. It's really important that your horse has a chance to turn the head back, see what you're doing. And also, maybe you noticed, when her head came down, those tight muscles along her neck were softened. And when the horse turns their head around to look at you like this also releases the tension in the neck. So in the next slide, we're going to now see the ear TTouch. Let's see about your ears. So I turn time a little to the side, and this is ideal, that she trusts enough to allow me to bring the head down when I ask. This is a really nice relaxation. Excellent. Now, if you do this, and we'll practice after, just, a couple of minutes before you get on, okay, come a little lower, down a little bit. Good girl. Now, I have to pay attention to how I'm standing, that I move my body, because look, if I get stiff, I hold my breath. Doesn't look so good, right? And she feels that. So the rider, the person who's going to be riding or grooming, has to have this movement. And I always pay attention how I stand. So I keep my knees unlocked because look, if I lock my knees, not so good. That's it. And this is much safer for me, easy. She's a little sensitive on this ear. That's really good. Now, this is so good if you consider the first time. She doesn't know me. She's out in the arena. This is really a good mirror. Now, just notice bringing the head down is a level of trust that it takes to do this. If you're working with a horse who's been taught to go back when you shake the line at them, they're not going to allow that in the beginning. So you may have to go to the side first and take the ear from the side, and then do some touches on the face, just quietly with the back of your fingers is usually an easy way to do it. And then bring the head down and be just a little bit to the side rather than right in front for the safety. Now, I mentioned my posture. If you lock your knees, it means your weight is back on your heels. And if that is so, and that horse moves or something spooks it, you can't move. So it's a matter of safety. Keep your knees unlocked so that you can move in any direction. So in the next slide, now we're going to take a look at the mouth T-touch, same that we did. So I'm going to show you now with the mouth work and the nostril. First with the nostrils, because working the nostrils like this has an effect on the emotional centers of the brain. So the, you know, that tightness that she has a tendency to get, if you just do like it's 20 seconds of this, making sure that she responds quietly and do it in a way that she accepts and likes. Because what this does is work on the emotional, on the part of the brain that affects the emotions. That's really good. First, I use the outside of the mouth, and then I'm going to just ask her, and I'm really careful where I put my hand here, my thumb, just gently go in here, just a little bit. I just want to touch your tongue. That's nice, okay? Good girl. And see, because we already taught her to keep her head down, this is where I want her head. You can see she's like pulling really hard. That's the girl. So I move my hand and move the upper lip. Now, easy, lift. That's really good, girl. Now, the strange thing is that you'll find she'll be freer in her joints, have a better trot. Oh, just by changing this upper lip. That's a funny thing, huh? Yeah. Now we're going to do see how tight this is? Ay. That's a girl. And after a couple of times, horses actually really love this. And they'll stick their lip up to you to get it. Good girl. So I remember a time, a 6-year-old Appaloosa, really wonderful Western pleasure horse, who came to one of my 6-day trainings. And he couldn't lift a foot to step into a step-in trailer. He had to rear back and hop up because he was so tight doing the leg circles and moving the legs. And when I went to his mouth, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe how tight these lips were. And so it just, you work on the outside, always being very careful that you don't get your thumb between the teeth. And it took a lot at first to move that. But by the third time, and I'm talking like, maybe 2 or 3 minutes each day we did it. By the third day, his lip was loose and the horse's stride really changed. It's fascinating how you can affect the emotions. And if you have a horse who is resistant or really spooky, work around that mouth to affect the emotions. So in the next slide, now we're going to the, let's see, the coiled python. I like the fact that she's turning back her head toward me. And I really use my breathing. I can do that same thing along the girth area, like I was doing before, a circle and a quarter and a push upward. I actually move the skin upward and come back. Easy, easy, with a little too much pressure. Now I have to change the angle. Good girl. That's a girl. That's nice. Now I just wait till she's listening, and I watch her eye. I want to see what is the horse thinking. Good girl. Interesting. And move your hand however it's necessary for you to be comfortable, whether it's the back of your hand or however, just move your angle of your body. Circle and lift with both hands. My left hand stays still. My right hand circles, move the skin in a circle and a quarter and a lift. We call this a coiled python because the python lift is just when you lift. But when I circle first, I get her attention. Oh boy. And this is building confidence. And you do this on the front and the hind legs and the girth area. Notice how I use my breath. Because when I breathe so that the horse can hear me, you'll find that they'll follow your breathing. And you might wonder, like, how come we give these funny animal names to the various TTouches? Well, when I did it, I originally, like in the 80s, had numbers for the first 5 TTouches. And when we got to developing a 6th, and it's just the different ways that we use our hands, I figured, we don't want to go with these numbers. And we started using names for the various ways, parts of the hand that you use that were based on animals I had worked on, with the exception of the abalone. But with the coiled python, this comes from an 11-foot python in the San Diego Zoo Park who had reoccurring pneumonia. And they'd done all the antibiotics and it hadn't worked. And I was giving a presentation at a zoo conference for the San Diego Zoo. And they asked me to look at this python. And she didn't especially, this is a python that was used for education. And she didn't really appreciate it when I did these little circles on her body. So I intuitively put my hands under her body and just did this little lift and a breath. And snakes are mostly lungs. I mean, really long. Just did this all down her body. And suddenly she just, not suddenly, but slowly she uncoiled. And then we let her go for a slither. And we put some water there because a bucket, she didn't have it like a tub. She went in and then she came out and I was kneeling on the ground. And she came up to me, took her tongue and touched my forehead, and then put her head up against the side of my cheek as though to say thank you. And it was so dramatic because the person who was filming this, was editing the film, saw this and he was terrified of snakes. And when he saw the snake put her head, side of her head, against my cheek and then lay across my lap, it was so clear that she was saying thank you that he completely lost his fear of snakes. her name was Joyce, and she's with us. This lift, this coiled python, lift, circle and lift, and slowly release, just brings the horse to a place of being grounded, being in their body, feeling safe in their body. The beautiful thing is you can do this to yourself, exactly like this. So in the next slide, we're now going to look at the work on the tail. So there are actually 4 different things ways we work the tail. I just started, and you start with whatever you feel like and see what works the best. But I started with him because he's so trusting, just coming down the side like this. And see, he's licking. And now I'm going to do little circles on the tail. And you see, because he trusts, he lifts that really nicely. That's part of the calmness that he has. Now, he liked it when I came down. Some horses clamp their tails. He actually lifted it a little. That's nice. See, there, now I'm moving it, and this is really good that he trusts enough to move it, because I want to be able to move this tail to affect the cranial sacral. Good. There. Good. And I like to stand sideways like this instead of facing the horse. It's just a safer, because if he moves, I can easily step back. If I'm facing him, not so good. Genau. Yes, that's it. So now I'm going to give it easy. Just hold and very slowly release. Now you can put your hand up here and feel it. And because you can't see so much that much is happening. Circle. And that's good that he's resting, just relaxing, and circle both directions. And and slowly release. That's nice. Now, notice again my breath, how I use my breathing, how I use my posture. Now, the reason I'm doing this tail, you can activate the cranial sacral fluid along the whole spine. And this is essential to good health. And also, I mean, think about it. This is the cheapest insurance that you can have when the horse is really aware of the tail, of the hindquarters. And what you'll find in horses who tend to spook, it's really useful. Horses who are like not trusting, it brings them to a place of feeling their body in a new way that makes a huge difference to them. Also, the first time I worked with a horse, I'd already been doing some things with this horse, and we knew how he was. You stand to the side, and you can just do slides. These nice, slow, just a few slides. I remember one of the really fascinating horses I worked on in the 80s in Germany. It was a stallion, a 4-year-old, who was brought to one of my 6-day trainings. And he said, be very careful. This horse is a real kicker. When one of the ways we see kicking is it comes from a place of fear. It's defensive. So instead of getting after the horse, say, wait a minute, how can I bring this horse to a place of trust? Well, we started by taking the tail to the side and doing these like nice, long, slow strokes where there was no way that he would want to kick or could, because we were on the side. And he completely calm. We did one session with the tail, and then we could go on with the other work, and the horse completely lost his resistance. Now, what was interesting, we had a neurologist in that training. And what she said is, think of the tail as an extension of the nervous system. So it's just a way of absolutely ensuring that the horse knows his whole body. And the level of trust that comes from this is remarkable. So on our next slide, we're going to look at the lying leopard T-touch. Circle and a quarter, little pause and a slide. And I watch her eye, watch the blinking, what she's thinking. Good. Huh? Because we're giving her a sense of her body in a way that is going to really enhance her health. Not just the physical health, but the emotional and mental health. Now that clouded leopard T-touch is just, look, with the pads, just again, move that, practice on yourself, moving the skin. And it brings the horse into a connection from front to back. And you notice again, important is that she's just standing there untied. Christian mentioned our work at Equitana. I've been presenting at Equitana since 1975. It's every 2 years, and I've only missed 2 years in all those years. And what I do is take a horse who doesn't know me, I usually ride them without nothing on their head for trust, and then I'll get off and right in the middle of the arena, nobody's at the head, the horse is just standing there. I walk all around them, pick up the legs, do circles, work on the tail, and the horse just stays there. Why? Because they know that I really appreciate them. And when you come from your heart, instead of this idea that we have to dominate the horse, it's still out there, unfortunately. Work with a horse in a way that makes them want to be with you. And part of that is this concept of ourselves getting grounded, pay attention to our breath. And I forgot to mention the smile. When you're doing the heart hug, when you smile, you activate the feel-good hormone, the serotonin. And when you move the tissue lightly, not a massage, but lightly, you activate the oxytocin, which is considered the trust hormone. There have been huge studies done on that with people. So we see here a list. These are the components of the Tellington method, because I've only shown you a tiny, tiny glimpse into the work. It was just the T-touches, the work on the body. But we have the playground for higher learning, which has all the elements of bringing the horse to a place of focus and very much of trust. We have the various equipment that we use. We have what we call the dance steps. And we move the horse in a, not by our motions, but by actually giving them signals on the halter or on the chest, or with what we call the magic wand. Instead of calling this dressage whip, we use as a whip, which conjures up sometimes not the nicest thoughts. You see it like magic to reach out and be able to connect with this horse from a distance. And we have our philosophy, this concept that if you want to change the behavior, you have to change your mind. If you want to change your performance, you want to change your mind. And what I mean by this is hold the performance you would like or the behavior you would like, see that instead of focusing on what isn't working. The other thing, another point of philosophy is change the posture and you can change the behavior. And it's amazing to me how few people recognize that when the head is up and the underside of the neck is pronounced, that breathing is affected. The horse is in the sympathetic nervous system state of fight, flight, freeze, fool around. And as soon as you change the underside of that neck and you bring the horse into a place of balance by stroking them all over with this magic wand, we can ground them. We can affect the physical balance, the emotional balance, and the mental balance. So I just want to point out in the next slide, my latest book in English is written with co-authored by my niece, Mandy Pretty, the training and retraining horses, the Tellington way. And it has all of these aspects and many stories of the steps that we took to change horses who had various behavior and performance issues. And in the next slide, these are contacts you can have with us. Our Tellington-TTouch community, Tellington-TTouch world, and the Linda Tellington-Jones on the go. And you can go to my website, TTouch.com. And in the next slide, I want to thank from the bottom of my heart my wonderful godson, Christian Kreuber, and all his team for putting together an amazing series of work that's not done in any other way. And so you can learn this from signing up right after this to get these wonderful wehorse. So Christian.
Yes, and we have for all our attendees today a wonderful code for all new customers at wehorse.com. We offer 33% off the yearly subscription. Just enter the code FESTIVAL21 on the payment page. So you select 12 months, proceed after the register page to the payment page, enter the coupon code, you get 33% off. And here we have only two of numerous courses we have with you, Linda. Introduction to the TTouch method, a methodology where we go in depth into actually the methodology itself and the philosophy behind it, and then really the step-by-step approach with each individual TTouch explained in a tutorial. Okay, Linda, I suggest we proceed now to questions, the favorite part of the day. And we have been flooded with questions, and there are so many questions that reflect on the fact that people really followed you in depth. And I would like to start with the first one that got the most attention from the community here. Dorothy asks, does the circle have to be clockwise?
Oh, really good question. No, absolutely not. Like, for instance, just starting with the heart hug, whichever direction feels best. That's it. And try one, and like on your horse, just see what goes easily for you. And if the horse is quiet, good. But maybe you say, well, why don't I try the other direction and see how that feels to you? And if there's no response to the horse, just explore that. Because it is said in acupuncture world, in the Western world, that when you go clockwise, you tonify or you strengthen. And when you do counterclockwise, you release tension. Now, I say the Western world because in the Eastern world of medicine, according to one of our veterinarians from Germany who spent a month in China, they paid no attention to the direction of the needles, but follow your feeling. And it will depend sometimes which hand you're using. Trust yourself. Explore.
Okay, Dorothy, hope this answers your question. We move on to the next one, and that relates to it. Why actually, Linda, 1 1/4 of a circle? Home turf for you.
Great question. Actually, if you do this on yourself, You imagine you face the clock, put your fingers at 6, and whichever direction you want to go in, go just to 6 and stop. And it's like, what? It's not finished. Go 1 1/4, that little lift up, and pause. And it's like, oh, it's really different. Now, if I go 1 1/2, and I stop at the top, like the 12, it's like, what? Not finished. And that was an intuitive thing that we started following. And we found that about 15 years ago, we discovered, wait a minute, that 1 1/4 circle, that's that amazing spiral, the golden ratio that is in all of nature. And one of our researchers said, wait a minute, what we are actually affecting the DNA in doing this. And because we found with humans, we can make such a difference in human behavior from self-help. That's the answer.
Great. That was asked by Masha. Hope you have your answer now. Next question, asked by Betsy. Oh, actually, no, we stick to this one. So what facial pattern of spiral tend to indicate a calm, steady, and confident horse? What facial quals basically indicate this?
Well, it's the simple swirl, single swirl, like between the eyes or a little above, basically. But you cannot just go by swirls, because so much also depends on the other facial characters and the posture of the horse. Now, the posture can be changed. And the shape, actually, the use of the nostrils and the eyes can also change when you start doing the work. The swirls don't change.
Cool. Next one is from Leonor. And the question is, what if the horse is head shy and does not like to be touched in the ears? Also a classic for you.
Absolutely. So you just begin by finding the place where the horse is most comfortable to be touched. And you might even have to, if the horse is really touch sensitive, use the back of your fingers and come off the horse in the air, like from a distance. And it's amazing how that actually works. And then when you get to the head, you'll find that the horse will then begin to trust you. Now, the other thing is, out of movement, ask the horse to come forward and down a few steps, not too low. This idea of bringing the horse way down, that's a dominance thing. I want the nose no lower than the knees, because the horse can still be present, look around. As soon as they drop lower, it's like a submissive thing. Do whatever you want. No, I don't want the horse there. I want the horse to stay with me. So work. Now, the other thing is, stand from the side and do some mane slides. And if you can get to the front, instead of the ears, do strokes on the forelock. That also affects the cranial sacral fluid and will really relax the horse and create trust. And then use the back of your hand like this and go back. That's how we got what we call a llama touch, was with an animal that wouldn't let you touch their ears. It was a llama. They said it was not possible. The back of the hand. So with your horses, use your imagination. If you were the horse, how would you learn to trust yourself?
Great. We move to the next one. And this is a broader question that has been raised by Brianne. And what exactly does TTouch do for your horse, and what's the benefit? Does this put our horse into a state of relaxation that we can include in our riding and bonding. Here, a more general look on the T-Touch method itself.
Well, that's exactly what it does. Because when you bring your horse into the body, really feeling themselves everywhere, and you do the leg exercise, which the wehorse did a beautiful video with that, how you do this, and it grounds them. And when you get on that horse, the level of trust is completely different. And we're looking not for obedience in a horse, but a state of cooperation. And that's what happens with these 1 1/4 circles. It's like I consider it, and come from your heart, first of all, heart to heart, cell to cell, and soul to soul. And that's what happens. So imagine you're putting your heart in your hand when you reach out and touch your horse. And smile, because when you are in that state of the serotonin, the feel good hormone, the horse feels it. And you're in heart coherence. The horse feels that and mirrors that. And your riding will be completely different. I have to give you a quick example, Christian.
Yes, sure.
In 1978, a German magazine wrote a big article on the work, write a review. And somebody wrote to me in the days when we still wrote letters and said, well, I ride in a riding stable. Every week I ride the same horse. He has to have side reins. He'll try to bite or kick when I mount. And he always is really stiff and tends to like kick up or buck when I start. What can I do? I don't have my own horse. Fortunately, I answered the letter because it's been a basis for me understanding this, how this work works all these years. And I said, look, when the riding instructor brings the horses into the arena, you usually line them up and you wait to everybody mount at the same time. This is the way it used to be. Now you mount on a mounting block, way better. But it didn't used to be like that. And so while you have this 1 minute, the horse is already on side reins, can't bite you, just reach out, do a little slide, and just do a few touches. And then it was just touching. We didn't even have the circles. Just touch the forehead and do a little bit on the ears you can touch because the horse can't resist. She did it, and she wrote back to me, and she said, when she mounted, the horse didn't try to snap at her or kick, and he was completely smoother just to start with. So I believe what's happening, you're putting that horse into that relaxed state of the pair, and they cooperate with you in a different way.
Okay. Here comes the next one. Lei asks, can I use T-Touch to identify all areas of pain or discomfort on a horse?
Yes, and that's you can't necessarily find all areas, but one of the things that we do is go over the whole horse, first of all, just not tied, just standing there with a flat hand, and we're just saying, can you touch your horse everywhere? And they stand still. They don't try to move away. They're not, you don't find areas that are like resistant. For instance, around the girth area, not the girth, the flank area, if you've got a horse that resists your hand there, you need to check with your vet for ulcers. If you've got a horse who like tries to snap or resist you putting your hand on the girth area, that can be a horse that just has a habit of resisting because they were girthed too hard or too tight in the beginning. And that's when the coiled python, you can change that habit. Let me say, I know I forgot the question. What was the question I started answering because I was going somewhere with this?
about the pain and discomfort.
Oh, yeah.
If
Okay.
you can actually
So,
use
right.
T-Touch to
So-
identify.
Right. So first we do this, just do you trust to touch anywhere without resistance? And then I start just press, release, press, release, press, release. And you can check to see areas of sensitivity, especially I start around the atlas axis and then the shoulders and along the back. And that's a way of checking. And it's really interesting because I've worked with a vet on this one time, and he checked with the ultrasound, and the horse was reactive to this pressure, was where you could actually see areas of heat. It's interesting. But the big thing, the simplest thing to start with, does your horse trust you to stand still and let you touch everywhere? And dare to turn their head back to you quietly to see what you're doing.
Cool. Next question is with 15 votes. Would doing T-Touch on the legs help for creating leg awareness? For example, when the horse is tripping over poles, this has been asked by Carrie.
Yes, Carrie. And first of all, the leg circles that you'll see in one of the videos that wehorse made, the coil python starting on the front legs from the elbows, you circle with one hand, lift with both, breath, and ease back down about 3 inches. Well, depends on the size of the horse, but on a horse, not a pony. Otherwise, you go closer, down all the way down to the coronary bed. Now, the other thing you can do, circle the legs. And the third thing is tapping the hoof with the knob of the wand. Just tap, 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 tap. And what we'll do is do those 3 things and then lead a horse over a pole and see if they pick. And I do 1 foot at a time and see the difference. I mentioned that Appaloosa that was so stiff, and I've taken horses like that tapped the poles, didn't pick up a hind leg, and sometimes just tapping the hoof with the knob, like about that much, not anymore, and then take them over the pole. Can make a huge difference.
Okay, Carrie, hope this answers your question. Abigail, the next question would be yours, but it's around the different training technique, which we cannot comment on at this stage. So I hope you understand. We go to the next question. Leandy is asking, I would love to T-touch my horse's ears, but my horse is very sensitive to the ears and does not like me touching it. Do I desensitize him to be able to touch his ears? So the question basically relates to what we already talked about regarding the ears.
Right. And when we use it, desensitize, this is a word that is used all over the horse world. I don't like to use that word. Do we really want to desensitize? What about?
I was actually wondering too when I loudly just expressed the sentence. I was also stumbling over it, and it felt a little odd.
And it's common. It's common in the training and veterinary world. It's a word, But I'd like us to rethink that word, because we want to bring a level of trust in the body. So when they're afraid of the ears being touched, necessary first is to bring the head down. Christian, you weren't there a few years ago when I did a big workshop at Klaus Balkenholz in Germany.
Yes, sure, in Germany.
Yes, and he had a horse with 17 hands. And when every time he would come in the arena, the head would go up. And in hand, whoa, there's no way. And he's like really big, strong horse. We had 250 people there. So there's a lot going on in the arena. So I just got smarter. They have a beautiful big mounting block. It's like about 3 feet square and, 2.5 feet, maybe 3 feet off the ground. So instead of trying to bring the horse's head down to do the ears, I just stood up on the mounting block. I'm then higher than the horse. And I started doing touches on the neck and then on the side of the face, and I could do his ears. Then I stepped down and I could bring his head down and do his ears. So you get smarter. Now, in one of my books, it shows putting a head wrap over the ears and just like the ears are sticking up here. Put a elastic wrap, like an ace wrap right here. And then we could slip our hand under and touch the ears. Also, I'm going to, because this is a common thing. Don't be worried about it. Find ways of getting to those ears so you can overcome the fear that the horse has. I want to tell you one other quick story, and I think you know this one, Christian. It was a video I made 25 years ago with Nicole Opoff, and she had a very famous, yes, she had a horse named Rembrandt. He had 4 gold medals in dressage, and we were doing this video for before wehorse.
For PATV, our predecessor, basically.
Exactly. Yes, part of you. And so Nicole said, well, one thing he has, you can't touch his ears. It's really hard to clip his, and he was 18 at the time. Wonderful horse. And so I said, oh, interesting. And I just started working on the video on the whole body, did his leg, came to the head, and I could reach up, do the forelock, do the ears. And he was completely trusting. And when Nicole got on him, and we have a video of this, she could reach up and touch his ears from the saddle for the first time. So you can even change an 18-year-old who's had a lot of great work, but never good about his ears.
Exactly. We had just some questions coming in about the raffle. So if you want to take part in the raffle, what you could do besides being part and live at the wehorse Online Festival, please post an Instagram story that you are here, and please tag our Instagram handle, which is at wehorse_en. This is our international Instagram handle for the lottery. We move on to the next question, Linda. Abigail, we've been just gone over this question, but now she refined it in a comment, and she is asking how TTouch could help when a horse has problems with biting and mouthy behavior.
Yeah, great question. Because the standard, if you read it and, really get after that horse, this is actually printed in numbers of books. So he really thinks it's going to die. These are literally words in some books. And you know what? If you try this, it doesn't work, because the horse is just going to come back at you when you're not looking. So we discovered this many, many years ago, that when you put a horse tied in a safe place where he can't go back, like in a against the side and with something behind, about 2 feet from behind that back one, and have him over there tied so he can't bite you, and then have a lead on your side, and start from the side working the mouth, because he can't bite. He's between 2 lines. But remember, safe, not in the hall, not in the stall aisle where he can go back and hurt himself. No, be safe. And start working around the mouth, and just working this mouth. This is how we discovered you can actually change that behavior and get them over the biting. And we've done this with some really big biters. One of them, really famous one, was a Arabian stallion that had won a great deal in the UK and was sent back to his original breeder as really dangerous. And what she did, she's one of our practitioners, she would have the horse in the stall. You'd walk up to the stall and she'd have a big carrot in her hand and the horse would go, arr, and stick the carrot in his mouth. And she did this a few, I don't know, few days before she actually put him in that position that we call taming the tiger, so you can safely work with a biter and then start working around his mouth. And the horse completely changed. And I want to give you a principle. Until 1981, when a horse bit or kicked, I gave him a smack or, wait a minute, stop that. And then I read a book called The Course in Miracles. And one of the basic principles is the concept that aggression comes from a place of fear and is a cry for help. When I read that, I thought of a couple of horses that I'd really gotten after. And I mean, when I say gotten after, like one time, wham, I used to give them thunder. And I thought, how can I show that horse what I want? And that is by putting them in this position where they can't bite, in a safe control, and working around the mouth. Because for us and for horses, around the mouth will change these emotional responses. Same with dogs. We do the same thing with dogs. Be safe and always keep yourself so you can't be bitten, and start working that mouth from the side.
Linda, there are so many questions. We could spend another 24, 48 hours. But I assume it's early in the morning over there in Hawaii, big island. What time is it over there?
Well, it's now 9:39, and I have to take my Christmas decorations down today.
Exactly. Behind you, there is your lovely Christmas decoration. And from all of us here, I would like to say thank you. It has been, as always, inspiring having you on board. And I wish you a delicious breakfast now.
Thank you.
And a lovely day in the sun.
Thank you. I'm going to have celery juice. And I'd like to mention something, because I've really been having fun and paying attention to Instagram now. And I'm putting up a lot of pictures. And I'm going to start going on wehorse too, and following on your Instagram. So follow me. It's Linda Tellington-Jones on Instagram.
Stuff.
I will follow wehorse.
Linda Tellington-Jones now on Instagram. What else can I say? Follow us on Instagram. It's also wehorse_en. That's our handle. And of course, Linda, it was a pleasure having you. It is now moments away from the final presentation, which is one of the grandmasters of the European training system for dressage horses. It is Christoph Hess from Germany. He is about to come on stage. So stay tuned. Stay here where you are. We have a small clip for you. And then in a matter of minutes, in a matter of seconds, we have Christoph here. Thank you, Linda.
Ciao.